I work at a body farm in Knoxville, Tennessee for the past 5 years as a forensic entomologist. For those of you who don't know what a body farm is a research and training facility where human decomposition can be studied in a variety of settings. In plain English, we watch dead people decompose. There are only 7 of these in existence across the entire United States. The farm itself is scattered with bodies of all types. Most of the bodies are given to us by the individual before death or by the family after. Sometimes when nobody claims a body, the city will give it to us to use on our farm. We take bodies of every race, gender, body type, etc. It is important to know how a fat person decomposes compared to a skinny person or a female in her mid-30s versus a female in her late 80s. We place the bodies in different places. Some are left out in an open field in the sun, some are in the forest, some are in the water, and others are placed in cages to stop birds like vultures from being able to pick at the body. We do not cover or cage all bodies since there are birds in nature. The way the body farm is set up is a large fenced in a rectangle area with the admin building in the front. Once outside, there is a large field with a small tree lining the side fence with a gate. At the back, there is a pond or swampy type area. On the right, it is a wooded area extended back away to the bordering fence. The total size is almost 5 acres. On the adjoining side of the wooded area fence is a restricted military area. Nobody knows exactly what they are doing on the other side of the fence. Hardly anyone even knows it exists because publicly they don't exist. For the past 5 years that I have worked here, I have always wondered what they were hiding in there. The area is locked down like Area 51. There is the barbed wire-topped fence, security cameras, armed guards posted 24/7, and motion detection lights around the perimeter. I could never stop thinking of why they would want to place something that important on a body farm and what type of weird experiments they might do inside those walls. I had to somehow find out. Some days I would walk close to the enclosure. You could see nothing since whatever they were hiding was on the other side of the wooded area, but I just wanted to see how close I could get to the fence before they sent someone or the motion detection cameras caught me. The answer is about 15 feet from the fence before you are noticed. One guard asked me what I was up to, but I just told him I was walking the grounds checking on the bodies and apologized for him having to come out. He bought the excuse and seemed happy to not accidentally cross any decaying bodies on our side. I was given a warning by my supervisor and told to stay away from the fence. I am sure the military bosses were not happy someone was prowling along their fence. I backed off for a few weeks, but eventually started to patrol in different areas around their fence. Eventually, I found a place where their cameras had a blind spot. I could get right up to the fence and nobody noticed. Over the next few weeks, I continued to visit this part of the fence and stay there for longer, and luckily nobody ever came to check things out. I threw some sticks over the fence to see if it would trip a motion detector, but again, nothing happened. A dead zone. This might be the place I've been searching for. Curiosity has always gotten the best of me. I started to make my plan to break in and see what they were doing over there. I put a wire cutter in my work backpack and cut a small section of the fence until it was large enough for me to squeeze through. I waited for 8 weeks and the fence was never repaired. It looked like I had my way inside. I just had to work up the nerve to sneak in. I finally decided to do it. On the day of my attempt, I left work early for an appointment and then came back later to finish my shift. It gave me a great excuse for working over to catch up on my hours. After everyone left, I clocked out and moved my truck to a parking lot close by. I changed clothes, then walked back to the body farm and snuck in a side gate using my keys. I made it to the fence and took a small break. I quickly thought about what might happen if they caught me. Would they kill me? A body farm would be a perfect place to dump dead body, right? I took a deep breath to calm my nerves and pushed on the slit in the fence. As I stepped through the fence, I accidentally scratched the inside part of my hand, grabbing the cut fence. Some blood started to appear, but hopefully it wouldn't leave any on the fence. I'll have to wash it off tomorrow during my shift. I made it through the fence and waited for motion lights or alarms to go off, but there was only silence. I was in. I slowly walked through the forest, trying my best not to make a sound or move quickly enough to catch anybody's attention. Eventually, I came to a clearing in the trees and looked out to see an open field, then 3 buildings. There was nothing here. It was just 3 small buildings and an open field. One building was larger than the other 2. I assume that is where the headquarters is. For all the secrecy and security, they are running a small operation. Whatever they are doing must be inside one of the buildings. I need to get closer to the buildings and maybe I can catch a glimpse inside. I snuck around to the backside of the building. The rear side was closer and gave me a better view. I think I found what I was looking for. Behind the closest building, there were 4 of the body cages with what looked like 4 bodies inside. They looked like the same ones we used to keep birds off the dead bodies on our side. Why would they do body farm experiments when they could just use our body farm instead? It would be too dangerous to risk moving out of the wooded area, so I just sat and watched. Maybe I would see somebody coming or going and could learn a little more about what they were doing here. I could always come back now and watch more now that I had a way in. After about an hour, someone came out of the building wearing a face mask and gloves. I prayed they had not seen me. Then he stopped at the cages. Why would he be going to look at a dead body in the middle of the night in basically a hazmat suit? They are dead bodies. That is a bit overkill. He grabbed what looked like a stick off the top of the cage and then poked the body inside the first cage. The body rolled over and got up to its all 4s, back touching the top of the cage. The guard threw something inside the cell and it started to devour its food like a starving dog. He banged on the cage of the next one and the body inside threw itself against the cage and let out a growl. This one kept throwing itself against the cage, trying to get the guard, but eventually settled for its meal. The 3rd cage must have been empty as he passed it by. He walked up to the 4th cage and the body inside was already up on all 4s waiting on him. This one seemed different. This one looked more alive than the others. Then it spoke. "Please, just kill me. Don't turn me into one of those." The guard ignored this one and threw something inside, then went back inside. This what I came for. This is what they have been keeping secret. I know I should turn back, but I am too close to not figure out the truth. This might be my only chance. I have to go see what they are keeping caged up. I watched the first 2 caged animals eat their meal, but the 4th one is the one I was most interested in. That one ignored his meal and was a person. Why was he locked up with the other things? He wasn't an animal. I waited a little longer, then decided enough time had passed since the guard had gone back inside. I crouched down and ran towards the body cages. As I ran past the first 3 cages, the creatures inside started growling and throwing themselves at the side of the cage trying to attack me. They need to stop drawing so much attention. I quickly went to the 4th one. Inside was a man who looked underweight and sick. "Help! Help!" he yelled. "You gotta get me out of here!" "Shut up before they come to see what is causing all this noise," I said. "What the hell is going on here?" "They are injecting us with a virus that turns us into one of those," he said, and pointed at the cage next to him. "What the fuck are those things?" I asked, as I looked at the things in the cages. The one next to us had to be a decaying body that had been dead for about 6 months, but somehow was still alive. The skin had a brownish tint to it, and the arms and legs had started to rot. The body and head itself was in surprising shape compared to its limbs. The virus kills everything non-essential to life. That is why half of it is rotting. He said, "Their mind is gone. All they care about is keeping the virus alive by feeding it." "Zombies? That's impossible," I said, staring at one in disbelief. "How is it even alive with its body decaying?" "The only thing alive on those is the virus. The rest is a shell," he said. "Holy fuck, is it contagious?" I asked. "It's a virus, of course it is. Right now it only spreads by open cuts, but it's evolving. It could eventually turn airborne." He was still talking when he was interrupted. "What the fuck is going on out there?" a guard yelled. "Shut the fuck up before I beat you with the stick again," The guard slammed the door shut. Fuck, I got to go. I can't be caught. They will turn me into one of those if they catch me. I said. Please, you gotta help me, the sickly one said as he reached out and grabbed my left hand. I'm not one of them yet. You gotta help me. I can't right now, I said and pulled my arm away. I've got to get out of here. I looked at the buildings to make sure no guards were watching and ran back into the wooded area. Somehow I had made it back to the relative safety of the woods. I backtracked to where I had cut the hole in the fence and pushed myself through. I took the side gate out and walked back to my truck. I drove home trying to grasp what I'd just seen. I wish I had just followed the rules and forgot about the restricted area. My curiosity always screws me over. I took a shower and cleaned off. I put some triple antibiotic where I'd cut my hand on the fence and covered it with a Band-Aid. Once I laid down on my bed, exhaustion overtook me and I fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, I woke up feeling like shit. I looked at my phone and had 7 missed calls from work, and it was already 2 p.m. I tried to lift my head up off the pillow, but I was too weak. I closed my eyes and fell back asleep. Josh, I heard my girlfriend saying while someone was shaking my body. I opened my eyes and saw her leaning over me. Ashley, what are you doing? I tried to say, but it came out as a whisper. You're awake, she said. You have been sleeping for 3 days. I was about to call an ambulance. When I came to check on you yesterday, you had a fever over 104. I was going to call an ambulance then, but you said to just let you sleep and rolled over. I am okay. Really, if it said I wasn't really okay, but I was at least awake. That is an improvement. What is my temperature now? 101. It was just a small virus or something I must have caught, I said. Did I just say virus? Oh shit, wait, I bet it was all just a dream. Fever dreams can be crazy. That must be it. I looked down and saw my left hand still had a bandage on it. What happened to my hand? I asked. It was like that when I came over, Ashley said. You worked late the other night and must have went to bed sick when you got home. There is no way I could have caught that virus. I must have caught something else. And I am getting better. It has been a few days and I'm feeling better, but I am worried. I think I might have the virus. Thinking back on the night, the one in the cage grabbed my hand with the cut on it. It is possibly I contracted the virus from him. It makes sense of how I got it, and also explains the flu-like symptoms. Even worse, Ashley is now in bed sick with a high fever. I think she may have caught it from me. I don't know what to do next. If I take her to a doctor, they will discover the virus and have her quarantined. Then she will tell them she caught it from me. Once the military doctors discover we caught the virus, they will either have us killed or put into the cages as another experiment. The only other option we have is to run when she is feeling better. I don't know how I am going to explain this to her. I just hope that the virus is only contagious when you have a fever. I was pacing around my bedroom that night, restless and unable to sleep. Every creak in the old house made me glance over my shoulder, and every shadow seemed to stretch a little longer than usual. Maybe it was just nerves. Maybe it was just another one of those nights where your imagination runs wild and everything feels wrong. I couldn't shake the unease gnawing at me, so I kept moving, until a scream tore through the silence. It was sharp and desperate, a sound that made my skin prickle and my blood run cold. I froze, straining to hear, my heart hammering against my chest. Was it my imagination? A figment of my anxiety playing tricks on me? Then I heard it again. A raw, agonizing scream followed by the unmistakable sounds of someone struggling. Something inside me tightened. My feet felt like they were stuck in quicksand, but somehow I made my way to the window, every step heavy with dread. What I saw made my stomach lurch. There, in the dim glow of a street lamp, my neighbor was thrashing on the ground, blood pooling beneath him. A man stood over him, his face hidden in shadow, but I could see the glint of steel in his hand as he drove it down again and again. My neighbor's voice broke with each stab, his shouts growing weaker, fading into pitiful whimpers. And the man, he was smiling, lips curled back in a grotesque grin. He was enjoying it. Every single second. I wanted to scream, to shout, to do something. But I couldn't. I was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by fear, watching in helpless horror as my neighbor's life was taken from him in a brutal, bloody act of violence. I tried to look away, but it was like my eyes were glued to the scene, trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. When it was over, the silence was worse. My neighbor lay lifeless, a crumpled heap on the ground, his blood staining the pavement like spilled ink. The killer straightened up, wiped his blade clean on the body's clothes, and turned. My heart stopped as his gaze drifted up, locking onto my window. Our eyes met. For a second, it felt like time itself froze. A shiver of pure, primal terror shot through me as the killer's lips stretched into a slow, deliberate smile. He lifted his weapon, pointing it directly at me like a promise. My breath caught. "You're next." That was all I needed to snap out of my trance. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over myself as I fumbled for my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I dialed 911, pressed call, and nothing. No network. I glanced at the screen in disbelief, and my heart sank. What the hell, then, just as I was trying again, the lights flickered once, twice, and died, plunging the house into pitch darkness. My breath hitched, the darkness suddenly feeling thick and suffocating. I knew it wasn't just a power outage. I was being isolated, cut off from help. Panicked, I ran to the kitchen and yanked open the drawers, my fingers scrambling for anything I could use to defend myself. I found a knife, small but sharp, my only lifeline. Clutching it tightly, I made another desperate attempt to call the police. Still no network. I swallowed hard, the cold blade trembling in my grip. My mind was racing. What should I do? I ran outside, shouting for help. My voice echoed down the empty street, a pathetic cry swallowed by the oppressive silence. "Somebody please help!" There was no answer, no lights flicking on in the neighboring houses. No one came out, no one heard me. Or maybe no one wanted to hear me. And then I saw him, standing at the edge of my yard, his silhouette sharp and menacing against the darkness. My breath hitched. He took a step forward and I stumbled back, raising my knife. I don't want any trouble," I stammered, trying to sound braver than I felt. "I've got a knife too." But the words were weak, my voice a pitiful whisper in the face of his calm, confident menace. The killer's grin widened and he lunged. Fear shot through me and I turned and ran, sprinting around the side of my house. He followed, footsteps heavy and relentless. I was running on pure adrenaline, legs burning as I darted through the backyard, the darkness swallowing me whole. I turned a corner, heart hammering in my throat, and realized I was trapped. The fence loomed high behind me. The killer closed in, his sword gleaming in the faint moonlight. My back was against the wall, literally. I was cornered. And then I spotted it. A rock. It wasn't much, but it was something. I hurled my knife at him. A desperate move to buy time, and when he dodged, I scooped up the rock and threw it with all my strength. It hit him square in the chest, knocking him back a step. I didn't think. I tackled him, sending us both crashing to the ground. For a second, I thought I had a chance. Then he kicked out, catching me by the ankle as I tried to scramble away. He yanked me down, his blade flashing dangerously close. I kicked blindly, catching him in the face, and somehow I was on my feet again. But he was on his feet too, and there was no time to think, only to act. I spun around, desperate to find an escape route. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. My chest was heaving, sweat and fear mingling in my eyes. The killer stepped forward, almost casually, as if savoring the moment. He swung his blade with terrifying precision, and I barely managed to dodge, feeling the air slice past my face. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. In a desperate move, I lunged at him, trying to push him back, but he was strong, far stronger than I'd imagined. He swatted me aside like I was nothing, and I hit the ground hard. Pain shot up my back, my vision blurring for a moment. But I couldn't give up now. I had to survive. I had to fight. I scrambled to my feet just as he raised his sword for another strike. I braced myself, ready to dodge, but then, a flash of headlights. A car turned the corner, its beams cutting through the darkness like a lifeline. Without thinking, I dashed out into the street, waving my arms frantically. "Help! Please help!" I shouted, voice breaking. The car screeched to a halt, barely missing me. I could see the driver's wide-eyed expression of shock as he rolled down the window. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded, but I barely heard him. "Someone's trying to kill me," I blurted out, pointing wildly toward the shadows where the killer lurked. "You have to help me, please." Before I could finish, the killer stepped out of the darkness, calm as ever, the sword hanging loosely at his side. He was watching us, almost amused. The driver's eyes widened in horror. He fumbled with his door handle, stepping out of the car. "Get in, we've gotta..." But it was too late. The killer moved like lightning, lunging at the driver with brutal efficiency. I didn't think, I just reacted. I shoved the driver aside, and the blade that was meant for him sliced through the air inches from my face. I stumbled back, barely catching myself. "Get in the car!" I shouted at the driver, but he didn't move. He was frozen, staring at the killer with a mix of terror and disbelief. And then, somehow, he snapped out of it. He charged at the killer, a move that was as brave as it was foolish. The killer sidestepped easily, sending the driver sprawling to the ground. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I scrambled into the driver's car, slamming the door behind me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. The keys were still in the ignition. I twisted them, the engine roaring to life. My eyes flicked to the side mirror, and I saw the killer looming over the driver, raising his sword for the final blow. "No!" I shouted, jerking the car into reverse. Tires screeched as I floored the gas pedal. The car shot backward, and I felt the sickening thud as I hit something. Someone. The killer's face twisted in pain as he was thrown to the ground. For a heartbeat, everything was still. Then, before he could get up, I shifted into drive and gunned it, the car lurching forward. The killer tried to move, but the front tires caught him square in the chest, crushing him beneath the car's weight. I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I drove until I was sure he wasn't getting back up. The car bounced and jolted as I ran over his body again and again, my vision blurred by tears and adrenaline. Finally, I skidded to a stop, hands still clenched around the steering wheel. The silence was deafening. Slowly, I turned off the engine. The driver was sitting up now, staring at me with wide, terrified eyes. I stepped out of the car, legs trembling beneath me, and looked down at what was left of the killer. He lay twisted and broken on the pavement, his sword lying inches from his outstretched hand. I killed him," I whispered, the words feeling hollow and unreal. My mind was spinning, struggling to process what had just happened. The driver stumbled to his feet, his gaze shifting between me and the mangled body. "You saved me," he said hoarsely, voice thick with shock. "You saved us both." I shook my head slowly, still staring down at the killer's lifeless form. It didn't feel like a victory. It didn't feel real. I'd just been trying to survive. But now, as I stood there in the aftermath, a chill crept up my spine. Because in the darkness, behind the fear, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. It's now been a couple of weeks since then. I kind of hate everyone in my neighborhood. So this customer ordered 3 meals from Chick-fil-A and wanted it delivered to a sketchy apartment complex. It was getting dark, and I've been dashing all day, so I figured this'll be my last dash. And for a $25 tip, I didn't hesitate to take it. I picked up the food, and by the time I made it to the apartment complex, it was dark now, like 11 p.m. The pin on the DoorDash app took me to the apartment office, so I literally had to search for the right apartment building. As I'm looking for the building, though, I notice I'm going further and further into the back of the apartment complex, which creeped me out. I'm already in a not-so-good part of town, and they don't even have proper lighting in this part of the complex. It's super dark where I was going. So I find the right apartment in the very back corner of the complex. The very back. Then I get a text that says, "Hey, I appreciate you bringing my order. Would you mind bringing it into my apartment for me and sitting it on the table? I'm sick with COVID and it's left me bedridden. I'm home alone, so it'll take a lot out of me to come all the way to the door. Just sit it on the table and I'll have an extra tip here waiting on you." Immediately, I start getting this sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. I can't really explain it. I really needed the money, but things weren't adding up to me. They ordered 3 meals. But say they're home alone? But I could rationalize that because maybe they're a gluttonous eater or want to save some for later. But 3 different drinks, though? They're willing to let a complete stranger walk into their house? Maybe they're just really overweight and it's hard for them to walk, so this would be easier. They're gonna have a tip waiting for me on the table? Okay, hold on. If they're gonna leave my tip on the table, can't they come to the door which they claim the table is right next to? Well, maybe they sat back down and it's hard for them to get up again. Again, I was desperate for the money. I was currently in a custody battle after my children's mom ran off with them, so I was looking for any and every reason to get extra money from my attorney. Not my highest point in life at all. But as I was sitting there, contemplating whether or not I should do it, my mom called, saying she was just checking on me. I told her I was good, but I guess she had some mom intuition or something, because she just randomly said, "You sure you good? Well, I made tater tot casserole, my favorite dish, so it's ready for you. And we just picked your sister up from the airport. Okay, now don't do nothing too crazy. Come on home. See you when you get here." That stuck to me. I got my family waiting on me at home, and here I am fine. Take a risk for an extra, maybe $20. I told the customer I was coming inside, so be ready. Both of my hands were full because I had the drink tray as well as the food in the other hand. I looked at the door of the apartment for what seemed like forever, wondering what could be waiting on the other side of it. No lights were on, not even a bathroom light. I went around the side of the building where the bedroom window was, and it was also pitch black. I got tense and uneasy. I dropped the order by the door, snapped the picture, and pulled off quick as I could. I drove to the corner and marked the order delivered. Then I sat and waited. 2 figures came out of the apartment, looking around the parking lot and talking to each other and someone else inside the apartment. Now, why were multiple people be sitting in a pitch-black apartment wearing pitch-black clothing and inviting a stranger into their home? I guess I can say I literally dodged a bullet with that one. And the only thing that deterred me was that call from my mom. Then a couple days later, I saw an article on Newsbreak about a DoorDash driver losing his life after a robbery went wrong. Messed my head up, I quit dashing for a while.